Production of Kansas City Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Smithfield Foods, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Coming up, anger over the city's response to a rising murder rate.
The people in the community think this is a farce.
Picking a new flight path for KCI. Kansas avoids a mass shutdown of schools. Working in the service industry can be a thankless job this week. Why 2 area restaurant workers are grabbing the national news headlines. Plus, why guns and abortion are topping the week's big local stories. And in our newest Common Ground segment, raw emotions spill over as we pull up a chair with members of our LGBT community.
Hello, I'm Nick Haynes. Thank you for joining us. Just before America celebrates its independence once again from the British, we roll up our sleeves to connect the dots on the news of the week on both sides of state line. Kansas City Star nationally syndicated columnist Mary Sanchez is with us. From behind the microphone at KMBZ Radio, Scott Parks, the senior writer for The Call, Eric Wesson, and Star reporter, columnist and blogger Dave Helling. 50 lives have been lost to violence in Kansas City this year. That's 13 more murders than this time last year. 2 of the deaths were infants, including the recent shooting of a 4-year-old boy in the backseat of a car.
What in the holy hell is going on in this city?
While the mayor says something desperately needs to be done, some members of the anti-violence task force he appointed are now speaking out, saying the 6-month-old panel is a farce.
We have some brokenness here.
What are we really trying to do here? Okay? Because the people in the community think this is a farce. I hear it all the time, that this is just something that the politicians are doing just to say we're doing something. No. The people of this city deserve better than that.
The task force is not expected to issue recommendations until the end of the year. Is it unfair then to complain halfway through the process that it's not getting results, Eric?
No, it's not. And he's right on point. And it was said at the beginning of the task force that this is just a mockery. It's just whenever you want to do something to satisfy people or calm the people, you reach back, you grab a task force, we're doing something, and it's not effective. And I think that the leadership with it, you know, Julie Justice, people were saying that she did some things in the State House with gun control. I don't think she was the right person for that then, and today I still don't think that she's the right person for it now. Nothing tangible has come out of it. If the Penguins need a new place to lay down, they go get money to do that. If the animals are misused, you get money for a shelter. Why not get some money to do an advertising campaign, some billboards, put it on radio, put it on TV, to just heighten awareness that this problem is.
But that could still happen. This is still a fact-finding period of time, though, isn't it, Mary?
It still is, and we are talking about huge social problems that go back to basically the birth of this country with slavery and issues of discrimination and long-term and poverty, education. It is so massive. There is no way here or in any other major American city that some little task force is going to accomplish that. But they knew that going in. If anything, maybe that's the problem of just trying to eat at these things through this avenue. And we talk about billboards. I don't know that I'll be polite, fools with guns that have been shooting up and knocking off little children in their back seats of their parents' cars. I don't think they're going to stop because they see it on a billboard. And that's the reality. We are dealing with some really deeply
So are we asking too much, Scott?
I will point out that I think we like to look at cities like Chicago and say that their violence is out of control, that the streets of Chicago are running red with people's blood. If you take the number of murders and our population here in Kansas City, Missouri, we actually have a higher per capita murder rate than the city of Chicago, which has a horrible reputation for its deadly violence. Are we asking too much? I think we're asking too much of this commission. It reminds me of back when Kay Barnes was mayor, and every time there was an issue that came up, she always appointed a blue ribbon committee. Well, this is what this is.
But it wasn't long ago, Dave Helling, that we were patting ourselves on the back in this community that we'd actually got crime under control. It was going down.
the murder rate particularly, and so you want to avoid drawing any immediate conclusions. There may be a spike for reasons that aren't completely understood. And the problem of urban violence is not just limited to Kansas City. We just need to be clear about that. And I think one piece of the puzzle that remains unexamined in Kansas City is how the police department is run and what reaction police officers and detectives and others have to this spike in the homicide rate. But I've covered commission after commission on violence in Kansas City. I mean, going back into the 90s when you'd have 150, 160 murders in a year, and Emmanuel Cleaver was the mayor, and he'd have gun buybacks and all the things that you were trying to do. It seems, as Mary suggests, the problem is quite intractable. And so, and by the way, let's not denigrate the good faith of the people who are on groups like this. They're trying hard. They're just trying to solve a problem that is very difficult to crack.
You have a worse problem if you never heard anything out of City Hall, if there was no, and I granted maybe people get tired of Sly, but I'm so glad that every time he comes out and that he's outraged because he's talking about the deaths of innocent people.
Eric.
We have the commission report, and when I talk about the billboards and the public service things, it gives the appearance that something is being done, that there is some awareness to it. Weekend before last, there were 15 shootings throughout the metropolitan area. The focus was on Orlando. Even though that was a tragic situation, it kind of negated the issues that are going on here locally. As far as the commission, you have the task force's recommendations from the last task force. You have another task force that's looking at health issues. So within that, something tangible that people can see and renew trust could be done. We talk about the police department. They have the shot spotters. The shot spotters are actually working.
Yes, they are.
And they go to their phones, so the police response time is immediate. The problem is when the police get there, I didn't see nothing.
Right.
The shell casings all over.
Let's be clear.
I didn't see nothing.
So why is that? I mean, how can a task force, Nick, or any of us, how can a task force change that? I mean, that's an astonishingly difficult nut to crack, it seems like.
They changed that by saying, prosecutor's office, bad guys, don't give them a $200 bond, a $300 bond. Put them away and give them some time to think about it and let us build a case on it. The problem is that they do this, they get out on bond, and then people are scared because they know they're going to get picked up today, but they're going to be out by Friday,
Well, the
so
mayor,
they're not going to say anything.
The mayor has focused much of the solution on controlling the flow of guns. This week, Missouri Governor Jay Nixon vetoes a measure that would have allowed Missourians to carry a concealed weapon without a permit or training. The bill also included a stand your ground provision giving Missourians greater legal protection if they shoot someone in self-defense. Now, this passed both chambers of the Missouri legislature with overwhelming support. So is the governor just setting himself up for having his veto overridden when lawmakers return in September?
Pretty much. Unless somehow the conversation changes a little bit, and I think there is some hope that Orlando might do that. You know, they've begged and pleaded with them. Sly has, so has, you know, the mayor out of St. Louis, all the chiefs of police. But, you know, the legislature still thinks that it can get votes by going for these things. And I think people just don't have it explained to them enough. I mean, it is a police officer's nightmare to go into a situation, say he gets a call, and there's something going on in a park, and you roll up, and you've got 5 people all standing there with guns. Who's the bad guy? That's a nightmare for police, and that's what they worry about with some of this.
Now, I should point out that in Kansas, they've already passed a law similar to the one in Missouri that the governor vetoed this week. It allows Kansans 21 and older to carry a concealed firearm with no permit or training. It's been in effect for exactly a year this very week. So has there really been a major change in the past 12 months in Kansas because we have a law like this? Have we seen more violent outbursts?
Not that I'm aware of. And I'm, you know, Mary and I are probably going to disagree about this. I'm a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I'll tell you who is carrying concealed weapons in the state of Missouri right now, with or without this law, and that's the very people you don't want carrying concealed weapons. Now, if the law is that you have to take X number of hours in a safety course and you have to get a permit, you know, as somebody who supports strongly the Second Amendment, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But I guarantee you that the very people that we were talking about in the previous segment, those are the ones who are already carrying concealed weapons.
Yeah, because of the reality of the way the Missouri legislature is constructed, rural interests still predominate on most issues, Nick. And rural people see the gun issue quite differently from urban people. I mean, it's almost diametrically opposed. In addition to that, you are now involved in the Second Amendment, which has an enormous emotional appeal politically. Nobody in Missouri has ever lost an election because he or she was too easy on guns, or too easy on guns. So the override is almost a certainty. The governor made a statement, nothing more from some of this. And until that sort of balance between urban and rural interests is reached, you're going to be in trouble.
Eric.
And I agree with Dave. It's going to be overturned. But here's the issue that people don't understand about the gun control. The gun control works when there's mass shootings, when you have Orlando, when you have schools, when you have movie theaters. That's gun control issue. The violence that we see on our street is urban. They're not going on computers buying guns. They're buying guns from drug dealers, they're trading guns, they're getting guns that are stolen from break-ins. That's the problem. And the two things need to be separated, those two conversations.
Now, by the way, in a news release, Governor Nixon said he has supported a number of measures expanding concealed carry laws during his 7 years in office, and he also insisted this veto was not in reaction to the shooting deaths in Orlando. That tragedy, though, continuing to reverberate in Kansas City. It's the subject of this week's Common Ground segment, where we take out our cameras to capture the pulse of the community over a cup of joe.
This week we're in Midtown Kansas City, pouring coffee and pulling up a chair at the Good Samaritan Project, where we've convened 6 members of the local LGBT community. It's 3 weeks after a mass killing at a gay nightclub in Orlando, and exactly a year since the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage.
The other day I was at a restaurant with my girlfriend, and this guy being real shady, like walking around, like holding something like by his side. It was an umbrella, but I was like convinced that he had a gun. And like my girlfriend could just see the fear on my face. Like I was watching him walk around the building.
I go to gay bars and I'm just afraid of, just being there.
You know, bars in the LGBT community are more than places to go have a drink. That even our most ardent straight allies don't fully appreciate the sanctuary that they are. That is the one place in the world that we can go and truly be ourselves. That we can, hold hands or dance and not have to look at our surroundings.
I still feel anger. I've actually seen myself a little depressed in the last 2 weeks too, just because, I've had one incident in my life where I was gay bashed, but that was several years ago, and I felt like we were moving in a really good direction, and it feels like a punch in the face.
I don't know if I've really changed what I do. My partner, on the other hand, is very affected by this. She doesn't want to leave the house. She doesn't want me to go anywhere.
Your girlfriend, your partner, doesn't want to go out at all, that you're scared to go to a gay bar. I can't tell you how much that pisses me off. This wasn't supposed to happen to this generation, because it's just infuriating.
This is a world problem. I don't know if an elected official can do a lot, but they can't stop this kind of behavior.
I would like more politicians to follow our mayor's lead and how he talked at the vigil that we had in Kansas City. And he was angry when he was speaking. You could tell that he actually cared and he was invested in this, and he wanted to do something different.
I like what you said, that it's a world issue. As someone who's likely to be a member of the state legislature next year, I'm going to be a freshman member of the super minority party in the state house. I'm not going to be able to change the world from that position. I realize that. What I can do is encourage the passage of the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act.
I believe that it's changing, and I want to be positive about it, but I also have to be realistic.
If you looked at where we were in June of '69, which truly wasn't that long ago when you look at a course of a civil rights movement, how much we were hated in the closet, in the shadows. I mean, where we are today is astounding.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you compare it and you go that far, and then you compare it to 2016, I totally understand. But when you're in a public place, you know, and you just want to give a kiss to your loved one, you know, I don't feel, you know, comfortable, and I should feel comfortable.
Honestly, in my own personal life, I have seen, that is one of the ways that I have seen that I have gained privilege now that I am, you know, presenting in a more masculine way, because before I identified as a lesbian, so I very much, that was always on my mind.
Well, it's funny that we bring that up. A gay couple got thrown out of a restaurant for kissing.
That was here in Kansas City?
Yeah.
Really?
And they weren't behaving in a mischievous way or, you know, undecent way, you know.
Right. It was a peck, I think.
You
know, it was like, it wasn't...
We weren't making out.
Right.
You see heterosexual people making out.
Right.
Yeah.
And people just walk by or, they're honeymoon, you know, or whatever, you know. So, and that's okay for them, but it's not okay for us.
Right.
Who draws the line that what is okay?
Well, why does our making out become a political act and not just two people making out?
Exactly.
Right.
See more of that conversation on the KCPT YouTube channel and at kcpt.org. Thanks to Mitchell Levine, Community Ambassador at LGBTKC, for helping convene our group this week. The Common Grounds team would love to visit your local coffee shop or wherever you gather over coffee. Send us a note at commongrounds@kcpt.org. Common Grounds is a project of KCPT and Consensus, putting the public in public policy. Now, the Supreme Court this week issues what some observers say is the biggest abortion ruling in nearly a quarter of a century, and every news outlet seems to be reporting the legal decision could have major implications here in Kansas and Missouri. Why is it that, you ask, when the 9 justices were actually deciding on a law in Texas and dealt with requiring abortion clinics there to meet the same standards as outpatient surgical centers, and that the doctor have hospital admitting privileges within 30 minutes of the clinic, or 30 miles rather of the clinic? So why should that ruling have an impact here, Mary?
Well, because we have some similar laws, but you know, it all has to be litigated. You'd have to have a lawsuit filed against Missouri's law specifically, and I don't even know the specifics enough of what the Supreme Court decided and on what lines to see if it would actually apply here. We're still a long ways away, but it does give the red flag up that these sorts of laws that have also been passed in Missouri would not pass the constitutional test.
Now, you should know that there is only one place to have a legal abortion in Missouri, and that's in St. Louis. In Kansas, there are 4 abortion clinics, including in Overland Park. Does that big difference in providers between the 2 states help explain new statistics from the health department in Kansas that finds that nearly half of the abortion procedures in Kansas last year were for patients who were from out of state, Dave?
Yeah, that has something to do with it. What the court said, it was a 5-3 vote, and remember, Antonin Scalia is no longer with us. What the court said, in essence, is states cannot unduly burden the right of a woman to have an abortion by passing laws that affect clinics that make it tougher for her to get that procedure than it would otherwise be, unless there's some health reason or some overriding reason that you would do this. And in the Texas case, they found no, it was just a way to try and cut down the number of clinics. So Mary's right, you'd have to litigate that in both states. But I don't think anyone really doubts that restrictions on abortion are meant to reduce access to the procedure and therefore would probably fail to meet constitutional muster in both Kansas and Missouri. It just takes someone going to court to do that. And by the way, that happened yesterday in Indiana, where a federal judge struck down some Indiana statutes, again similar, because of the Supreme Court's decision.
Important note, there will be no mass shutdown of school classrooms in Kansas, not this year anyway.
I wish the court hadn't done this for as far as said we're going to close schools down. But here they were able to resolve that on fairly short order.
It did all happen fast. No sooner did Kansas lawmakers arrive in Topeka last week for a special session to fix schools, they were out of there. A solution reached in just 2 days. The pressure from a state Supreme Court claiming they would padlock school doors was enough of an incentive for speedy action. Scott?
Well, already you're hearing some of the school districts, Blue Valley and Olathe, who are going to see some cuts, Blue Valley quite dramatically, already talking about the possibility of raising property taxes within the boundaries of their own school district. So I don't know exactly what this solved. But I've you know, Nick, from listening to the radio, I am an ardent opponent of the way that we spend money on public schools in Kansas. It is a top-heavy organization where you have a state with 105 counties, and yet you have 300 plus school districts. And I won't bore you with too many numbers, but just briefly, if I could, Leavenworth County, 75,000 residents, not students, residents, has 6 school districts. Jefferson County, Kansas, 18,000 residents and 7 school districts. It's top-heavy.
Now, rather than taking money from richer school districts, as Scott mentioned, to give to poorer school districts, which was floated as the way of fixing this funding issue, the reports say this plan was actually about giving $38 million by cobbling together money from a number of sources, including taking from the state's tobacco settlement money and the cash from the sale of the Kansas Bioscience Authority. And it means that actually the Blue Valley School District and Shawnee Mission are going to be actually losing $1.4 million apiece. But I thought this was supposed to be about saving the schools from losing any money. Why are they losing money at all?
It's about equity, fairness, and making sure that all students have an equal access to a similar education, given similar tax effort. And so what they did was, Nick, the legislature, was go back to an old formula. They got away from the block grant, went back to an old formula in which poorer districts got more money and richer districts got less. And the way to fully fund that older formula was to find $38 million. So they pour that in, and that supposedly makes everyone happy, including the court, the governor. They all signed the bill. That isn't the big problem. The big problem is the court is still trying to decide if the state of Kansas adequately funds its schools. And that's a $100, $200, $300 million or more question, which they won't get to until later in the year. And solving that won't take 2 days, let me just tell you that.
And we won't be discussing any longer on this program. That will take another show. Ever since Kansas City Mayor, by the way, Sly James announced in May that the city would not go forward with plans for an election on the airport this year, many people have been asking, now what? Well, the now what, we learned this week, is that the mayor wants someone else to take the lead in helping spearhead the effort. He contends it's up to the business community to finally take the lead. Is that just a passing of the buck or a simple acknowledgement that without a group like the Chamber of Commerce dumping lots of time and money on a PR campaign to change hearts and minds, nothing will happen, Eric?
That's right. And the chamber has the money, they have the resources. I think the city has spent, like $8 million on consultants for this project to wind up nowhere. I think that the city could pass that over to the chamber, let the chamber find people. Their pockets are much deeper than the city's.
But when there was a recent poll that said that an overwhelming number of voters, an overwhelming percentage of voters, were opposed to the single terminal plan, does it matter who's in the lead of this campaign, Mary?
It may not. It may be just the changing of the spokesperson that, Sly's tainted in a lot of people's views at this. I mean, who knows? At this point, it's like, how do you go backwards and restart? People are so ground in and entrenched on what they believe about the airport. Apparently, we didn't want the newest, latest, greatest thing, which is kind of the opposite of what people would normally go run to.
I don't think that they didn't want it. I think that people didn't understand it because there were so many different plans and the way they presented those plans. So now the chamber can put a different spin on it, present it to people where they can understand it.
Pie.
People just didn't understand it, Scott?
Just microwave.
Well, I don't think that people don't understand what a single terminal will do. Two things. I think the City Hall has a tremendous hill to climb to convince people in this city to get rid of what they consider to be probably the most convenient airport in the United States. And the other thing is, it's not that people don't understand it. I think that there is some resentment because it feels like that this plan, this idea has been rammed down our throats. And I think that's upset a lot of people.
But they're not going to sit on their hands right now. The city's now decided to invest in the current airport because it could now take years before anything happens. They're going to be starting to put more cell phone charging outlets, and they're going to be starting to improve the lighting. They're doing a lot more at the airport because it may take now many, many years before anything actually gets done.
Well, it was always going to take a long time, Nick, and now it will take longer. The other thing that has gone unmentioned in this panel is the city needs to convince people who never use the airport to vote for a new airport. And that means jobs and money and other things, an argument that they didn't apparently ever think of, at least in any major way. So until they sort of understand politically how to make people who aren't flyers interested in the solution at Kansas City International, it's going to continue to be a difficulty for for the people who want a new airport. And you're right, it's going to take years. It may take a decade before they even break ground on something new out at KCI.
Anyone who works in the service industry knows it's a hard and oftentimes thankless job. This week, 2 local restaurant workers were making national news, but for very different reasons. A worker at a Wendy's in Independence is assaulted by 2 female customers after they complained they didn't get enough straws with their drinks. The fast food worker is caught on tape being dragged through the drive-through window. Meanwhile, in Wyandotte County, a teenage pizza store employee sees her story make it all the way into the presidential race as an example of the gender pay gap. The teenager was fired after asking why a male friend hired at the same time for the same job was paid 25 cents more an hour than she was. So what lessons can we draw from these 2 stories this week, Mary?
Well, I question the behavior actually of not only the people that drove up, but then it looks like, and if you watch that video, I have not spoken to the woman, but it looks like she kind of perhaps overreacted. She was inside the facility, can't see climbing out the window. Right. On the other one, I think what people don't realize, and this is what thankfully it did underscore, is that since 1938, it has been, again, it's in the Labor Relations Board Act, that you can discuss your salary, but it is kind of this taboo thing, don't do it. You know, it is still a real problem, and good for the young lady that she raised the issue and got some attention, but it's still an issue. The law doesn't cover everyone.
Scott, if this is the example we're going to use for pay equity in America, this is a reaching for straws example.
Ooh, I don't think that's right at all.
Okay, go on.
It's a pretty important thing. 25 cents an hour, it's symbolic more than the actual amount of money involved.
Absolutely.
And that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers from The Star, Mary Sanchez, and The Call, Eric Wesson. 50% of Dana and Parks, 2 to 6 on KMBZ's Scott Parks. And whenever important news is happening at The Star, Dave Helling will be there. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us at KCPT, have a safe and joyful Independence Day weekend.